Hello, this is Janet Michael. In addition to hosting The Valley Today each weekday at noon on the River 95.3, I also produce podcasts. And I'm excited to kick off Season 2 of our podcast series in partnership with Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. It's called We Are REC. Every week we'll release a new episode talking to different people from REC about a host of different topics. We'll get tips for saving money on your electric bill. We'll talk about renewable energy and the impact it can have in our communities. We'll get some behind-the-scenes info about what happens when the power goes out in a storm. Don't miss out on information about community grants, scholarships, REC-hosted events, and more. Get every single episode on our website at theriver953.com under the podcast tab, or you can subscribe for free in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or on Spotify. Just do a quick search for We Are REC. Hello and welcome to The Valley Today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Monday as you are listening to this, though I am recording it on a really hot and humid Saturday morning. This working from home is not the 9 to 5 working that most people think it is. On the Zoom screen with me is Nathan Stalvey. He is the director at the Clarke County Historical Association. And Nathan, here you are working on a Saturday morning right alongside of me.
Hey, that's true.
There's no such thing as 9 to 5 anymore, is there?
No, there really isn't. There really isn't. There are days I've put in 12 hours. There are days I've put in 13 hours. There are weekends I've worked, and then maybe Monday mornings I might not start work until 10 or 11. So, yeah, it really just depends on what you're working on, yeah.
So I haven't talked to you since early on, even pre-phase 1. The last conversation you and I had on the air was lockdown mode. I mean, we were still not supposed to be leaving our houses, and I think it was mid-March, late March when we had our last conversation. You were talking about all of the things that you guys were putting in place from an online perspective because you couldn't open at all. So tell me what's happened with the Historical Association, the mill, everything in phase 1.
So in phase 1, yeah, we continued to develop really creative online content. I have to give a big shout out to the staff for their creativity during this time. The three of us, we really came together. We had other museums reaching out to us, asking if they could borrow some of our ideas, such as our online scavenger hunt, the jigsaw puzzles using our images from our historical archive, some of the videos that we recorded. I can't remember if I told you or not in the last one, if we had done it yet, but we recorded a video inside an abandoned Cold War bunker in Clarke County.
So, you did, because yes, that episode that you were on was kind of a split episode because you were part of it. And then the other part of it was Carrie Hill, who is the wife of our afternoon traffic jam guy, Lonnie Hill. But she's a teacher and was, of course, at home teaching her kids and was using some of your stuff in her classroom stuff, which I had no idea about. It ended up being the perfect 2-segment yet related kind of show.
Oh, that warmed my heart, hearing teachers use that. That's exactly why we put those things out there. So we kept that going. We kept live trivia going online using Zoom, and people really like that. The turnout is always really high. I think that's become that tradition. The first Tuesday of every month, people in Clarke County flock to come play some live trivia. Whether it's online or in person, they still like to show up to play. So we've been able to do that. Virginia.org recognized us as one of 19 museums in the state of Virginia that has exceptional online content for their Virginia History at Home blog post. So that was a big honor. I mean, we were up there with Monticello, Mount Vernon, a lot of other museums around Virginia. And here's Clarke County Historical Association right there in the mix with 18 other museums. It was an absolute honor to be recognized that way. Our online engagement has definitely skyrocketed. We've hit and surpassed our social media engagement numbers for the year. As you can imagine, everybody's online and needs something to do. So we've been staying busy developing new and different content all the time during all of this. But now, once we got into phase 1, museums, unfortunately, were not able to open fully to the public during phase 1 because they were listed, the governor listed them as an entertainment venue. So we were classified in with places like movie theaters and the like. So we still could not open to the public, but what we did, we wanted to kind of test the waters a little bit. And so we were available by appointment only. Now, we didn't get any appointments because I think people were still trying to wrap their heads around what phase one really was. But we put that out there. The staff's been going in 1 day a week during phase one. So I said, okay, when we're going to do this, this is going to be a gradual return to normalcy across the board. So to ask everybody on staff to just, okay, we're in phase one now, everybody go back to work every day of the week, that's going to be too sharp of adjustment. So we have our education coordinator will come in on Monday. I come in on Tuesdays. Our archivist comes in on Thursdays. So that was phase one. Once we got into phase two, then that we're going to start coming in a little more frequently. We'll be coming in 2 days a week each, so that there's always somebody there on a day of the week. So if somebody wanted to come in, they could, and so there would be somebody there. So yeah.
And phase one kind of gave you an opportunity. You were telling me before we started recording for the show to do a fair amount of maintenance around the mill. You were able to get a lot of work done, probably because you didn't have people coming and going at all hours of the day.
That is exactly true. I think I mentioned last time, one of the things we did in March was we cleaned out the entire tail race. And so for those who don't know mill terminology, the tail race, if you go down to the Burrow Morgan Mill, you'll see the little waterfall that's beside it and the water that flows to the right of the mill, depending on which angle you're looking at. All that water was shut down. And we had a staff of volunteers to go in there, clean all of this marl and grime that had built up over years and years and years. Cleaned it up, made the waterfall look really, really nice. It's pretty amazing to see the difference, like what that wall looks like without the big pile of dirt on it. That was one of the things. We cleaned out the sluice that feeds the water into the mill. That was another thing that we worked on. We had the crane. There's a crane that actually lifts our stones onto each other to grind. The one for our cornstone we had to get replaced because it was getting up there in age. So we had it fully replaced so that it can last another 100 years. So just always wanting to be safe on that front. We also had a large sycamore tree crash down into the mill race about a half mile, about a quarter mile downstream, that feeds in part of the mill race that feeds the water into the mill. So we actually had to get somebody in there to remove that sycamore because there's a leak in the levee and we needed to plug that leak, but we couldn't plug the leak until we removed this probably 1 ton tree that had become waterlogged and crashed into the mill, into the mill race. We've also done some maintenance at the dam. So about a half mile downstream is a dam on Spout Run Creek with 4 spillways that control the flow of water into the mill and down into Spout Run Creek. And there was quite a bit of debris that had built up. So myself and another volunteer got down in waders and spent an entire day just hacking away at branches that were coming in onto the buttresses, removing a lot of debris, making that water flow much, much nicer, and making sure that that wall is more stable. And we're going to go back out there probably next weekend and work a little bit more on that, cleaning it up and making it look nice again. So yeah, we've had a lot of projects going on.
All of that stuff is fascinating to me because as someone who's been to the mill on several occasions, I don't think about that kind of stuff. I just walk in, I see how cool it is that the mill is running and you're grinding, and think about what I'm seeing as I'm standing there. All of that maintenance and the waterways and the dams never would have occurred to me need some sort of upkeep and maintenance. And this kind of, I guess, provided the perfect opportunity for you guys to be able to do that.
That's exactly it. It's maintaining an 18th century working grist mill is tough work. I don't think a lot of people understand just how much work we put into the mill year after year after year. We have to make sure that all the gears are functioning correctly. We have to make sure everything is, any kind of wooden poster are stable enough. If we have to replace anything, we can't just go down to the hardware store and replace it. We have to get a specialist to come in who knows historic architecture. The millstone, the cornstone cranes, that was something that qualified millwright had to come in and do. We just couldn't ask a carpenter build it. We had to actually ask somebody who had that historical background of familiarity with working on historic mills to come in and do something like that. and then controlling the water, stabilizing the dam, making sure that everything's cleaned out of the race, making sure that water flow is optimal coming in. Because if that water flow is not optimal, without water, that mill is not functional.
No, it's just a big stone building.
That's exactly it. That is exactly it.
So you mentioned that a lot of this work was done by volunteers, but that still doesn't mean that the parts, so to speak, are free. That's got to be tough too on your budget because you're not open. You weren't able to charge admission for people to come in. How do you juggle the financial of we've got to get this done and we have the time to do it now, but where do you find the money to be able to do that?
Right. Well, for example, like the cornstone crane and the sycamore tree, we had to hire professionals to come do it. I was not about to ask volunteers to help us pull out and cut up a 2,000-pound tree. Wasn't going to ask our volunteers to do that. So yes, the money. Fortunately, we have money in our Legacy Stone fund, which is a capital campaign we started last fall. That people who donated $5,000 or contributed any money towards it whatsoever, those funds go directly towards capital expense projects at the mill, such as the cleaning the sycamore out, the gutter and the gutter repair work, things like that. So larger expenses, those funds go directly towards that. Now, we fortunately had some funds in that account to do that. Unfortunately, those funds are starting to get a little low because we've been able to tackle a lot of this stuff right now, but there's still more to do. So anybody who's interested in donating to said fund, they can contact me at director@clarkehistory.org. I can tell you a lot more about it. You get an actual plaque on what we call a legacy stone. What we did was we took our old cornstone, which we had been in use since 1866, mind you. We put that down on display in the basement with all the other artifacts and right by the water wheel. And for $5,000, people can have a plaque placed on this historic millstone in perpetuity. This will stay down there forever. And it shows you can put family names. You can go in as groups. You don't have to be an individual to write a check for $5,000. A lot of people have gotten together as entire families and contributed. A lot of people have actually gotten together in big groups of friends and contributed as well to honor maybe a relative, to honor somebody that they know. These were items that we put down onto the legacy stone. So yeah, that's where the funds are for keeping the mill running. Now, another thing is we had to cancel our spring art show, which was our biggest fundraiser, and that goes towards the general operations budget. So imagine, if you will, we have no revenue from the mill, we have no revenue from the art show, we have no revenue from programs. How do we stay afloat? Well, it's difficult, but we've been able to do it. I've thankfully been able to write several grants to help us. They're small grants, but they're still grants nonetheless that go towards certain specific areas of our general operating budget. And we've also gotten the payroll protection program money that also helped with salary through the end of June. So all of those things have really helped us, and we've kept expenses at an absolute minimum. So,
and I have on my list here, it was one of the things I was going to ask you about because I saw an article in the last week or two, I think it was, that the mill got a grant from the Shenandoah Valley Battlefield Association. And I saw that you were on that list, and I'm like, yes, that should buy them a little bit more time.
Yes, unfortunately, that money specifically goes towards lost revenue from the mill. So had the mill been open, that money would have been money that could have gone back into the general operating budget from donations to the mill, admission costs, grain sales and merchandise sales. We calculated that's the amount that we would have lost. So we were fortunate to be able to get that. I'm very, very thankful for the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Trust for putting that together.
Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back in the second segment, can we talk a little bit about what phase 2 is actually going to look like and how much of the phase 1 stuff might actually stay through phase 2, 3, and into the future? Can we talk about that?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll do all of that when we come back in just a couple of minutes. We are sharing a Zoom screen with Nathan Stalvey today. He is the director of the Clarke County Historical Association. Again, you are listening to this on a Monday afternoon. We, however, are recording it on a Saturday morning. Regardless, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Expecting to hear a commercial? That's what this is, sorta. First, I want to thank you for listening to the Valley Today podcast. You're one of thousands who listen to the show this way every month. Sometimes it's because our listeners are busy and they want to listen when it fits their schedule, or it's a guest of the show who want to hear what they sounded like when they were on the radio. We even have a few binge listeners who listen to a week's worth at a time. Can you even imagine? So if you want those people, your potential customers, to hear your message, then this could have been your ad. And the bonus, your commercial isn't restricted to just 30 or 60 seconds. You can take up to 2 minutes to talk to those customers, and there's even the opportunity to be an exclusive sponsor of the Valley Today podcast, which also gets you on-air mentions at the end of every show. If any of this sounds interesting to you, give me a call at the station, 540-635-4121, or send me an email to janet@theriver953.com. You can also find all my contact info by searching for me on theriver953.com. Welcome back to the Valley Today. I am your host, Janet Michael. We have pre-recorded today's conversation with Nathan Stalvey. He is the director of the Clarke County Historical Association. We are recording on a hot and sticky Saturday morning. You, of course, are listening to this on Monday afternoon. And we, when I record these over Zoom, we take a break like we would normally if we were sitting in the studio. And then Nathan and I went on like a 15-minute rant about the current state of sports in our country and the lack of baseball and how that is not sitting well with either Nathan or my husband, quite frankly.
Yeah,
but
not
Nathan,
so much.
phase 2 of the museum, the mill, what does that look like for you guys? I mean, that's not throwing the doors open and saying, hey, y'all, come on back, right?
That's exactly right. We're in an interesting situation. So for phase 2, we have to look at, we have a museum downtown Berryville, and we have the historic Burrow Morgan Mill in Millwood. And those are two different scenarios that we have to look at. It's not just one universal across the board, this is what we're going to do. For the museum in Berryville, it's a very, very small space. To maintain 6 feet distance between each other, you basically have to have people in different rooms. So it's literally that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to encourage people to come in by appointment only if they could. If somebody wants to drop in, there are going to be a number of restrictions that they must follow. That's, again, just like with phase 1, if they came in with an appointment, if they have COVID-19, they cannot come in. If they've been around with somebody with COVID-19, they cannot come in. If they do not have either of those, then they must wear face masks. They must maintain social distancing as best as they can. That if they don't have face masks, there will be face masks provided to them when they walk in, and we also have hand sanitizer right by the front door and the back door. We also, anything that's borrowed, used from the library, if they have to do some research from the library, then those items will basically put into an isolation room for a minimum of 9 days away from all the other books and artifacts and things like that. Nothing comes out of the archives. So if somebody comes in wanting to do some research, pulling something out of the archives, excuse me, they cannot pull anything out of the archives right now. That's just going to be something we'll be able to assist them as best as we can. Perhaps we can make some copies from the archives. The archivist will be able to do it, or we can point them in the direction of our archives are online. So we will use a computer downstairs to point them in the right direction of certain things that are on our website. But so that's what it's going to look like in the museum. The staff will be coming in 2 days a week each. So we'll each take different days to come in instead of the one day we come in now. And that's how the museum, and we're also going to hand sanitize as well. And we're also going to, the staff will also be required to wear masks at all times. And we will have to be required to wipe down using Clorox wipes, everything we've touched, every surface and things like that. When visitors come in, visitors come out, we must sterilize all the surfaces. And there's an entrance and an exit. We would ask people to come in one way, exit another way. The mill is a different animal. The mill is a bigger space, yes, but there's also quite a number of volunteers that work there to get the mill ready for grinding, for getting merchandise, to talk about the mill. And a lot of our mill volunteers are older and more susceptible to COVID-19. So we have to be very, very careful. And I'm working with our mill volunteers right now. I actually talked to them yesterday on a number of options that we can do. One of the options is that we keep the mill closed, but we start getting it prepared. We start getting the gears ready. We start getting the water wheel going again. We start getting water flowing back into the mill, and we start grinding some grain to sell. Now, we may not be open to the public on the days that we grind because it will be a little difficult to keep people social distance. And I've been down to Millwood on the weekends since phase 1 began, and I will tell you, it is very busy. So we would have to basically be very careful at first. I know it'll be busier on the days that we grind, but one of the options is that we grind on days that we're closed, and then we're open on the weekends. People can come in, buy grain, but there will be lines laid out as far as where they can and cannot go. And there, we do have 2 doors, so the entrance one way, exit another way. So we will be able to maintain that social distancing coming in the mill. There will be signs everywhere saying, hey, we can only let in a certain number of people at a time. You must maintain social distancing. We'll put tape down where people has to, where their distancing can be. So yeah, that's going to be the tricky part right there, is the mill. But we're hoping we can get the mill open to the public by the end of the month.
Which will make it nice because it is summer. I mean, granted, the seasons and the days of the week, and here we are on a Saturday morning recording. Time is relative these days.
Yes.
But it is still the summer when, and some people are still being tourists. I've been on several conferences and Zoom calls with people in Front Royal and in Winchester and in Luray and Strasburg that they're seeing a decent tourist traffic coming from the surrounding areas. So being open on the weekends is going to be a big deal if you can pull it off.
That's true. And it's interesting. So yesterday I did an oral history interview using Zoom with the proprietors of Lock Store, which is the business right across the street from the mill. And they said they have been packed. Their business has been booming during COVID-19, especially once phase 1 began, because their weekends have just been lines out the door. I mean, they've kept the social distancing. Even though people aren't allowed in, they are waiting outside to get their orders. It is, and I come down and I see tons and tons of people down by the mill.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So I know that once we are able to open again, that it's going to be packed. So we have to be very, very careful. And again, another option is that if we do grind and we decide we want to open to the public, that people will not be able to go downstairs to the display area, to the water wheel. They'll just have to simply watch it from upstairs. Yeah, exactly.
So how much of all of this online stuff that you have done, I assume, I mean, you're not obviously going to take any of that down. It's not going to go away, but are you going to continue to add to that online library through phase 2, through next year, years to come? Is that something that's now the new normal for you?
It is. Now, we are going to be scaling back on some of that stuff because, that was something I sat down with our education coordinator, and she says, hey, look, it's taking all of my hours to maintain all of this online content, the social media posts, the online activities. She says, but I cannot be expected to do this when we return back to normal on top of what I already do. And that's impossible to ask for anybody. So we are going to keep some of those things. We are going to keep the YouTube channel. That was something we had planned for a long time anyway. Now we're able to do it. We're going to keep putting the videos out there. That's not going to stop. We're also the archivist blog. That was something we started even before all of this. That's going to continue as well. The scavenger hunts, that will be something that will probably be scaled back because we would encourage people to do that in person. So there are a number of things that we will not be doing, but there's still many things that we will be. But it is, again, it's a balance that we have to maintain because we really want to get back to doing some of these in-person programs. And so, but we also recognize the popularity of some of these online options that we've been able to do.
Well, and ideally what would happen is you get back open and people have appreciated the online stuff so more that maybe the donations increase, maybe you write some more grants, and then you're able to fund perhaps a part-time person that can come in and continue at that level that you were doing during the quarantine. Because I remember you and I talked about it back then, about how excited you were to finally be able to have some dedicated time to do all of this. And yes. I don't think in the beginning of any of this, this, any of us were thinking about, oh, wait, when we have to go back to what our normal day-to-day responsibilities are, how are we going to continue to maintain all of these cool new things that we have figured out how to do?
Well, we're in this interesting time period right now where when you and I last talked, everybody was looking to do something online. And we were right out front. We were very proactive. We had a number of online content. We had great participation in our events and our programs online. We've seen those numbers start to go down. People are getting on, and I've talked with museum directors across the state of Virginia. Everybody's seeing this. The online fatigue is starting to set in. There was actually a great article in I believe it was the Wall Street Journal not long ago that talked about Zoom fatigue and why people are getting Zoom fatigue. And it talked about it as like from a biological perspective, as human beings, we need that interaction. And using Zoom, when we see our faces, it's a little distracting. And plus, when we're talking to people on Zoom, it's a little more up close rather than at a distance. So there's this psychological angle to it as well. People are getting to Zoom fatigue. We're social creatures by habit. We like to be around other people. We like to be outside by our nature. So we're starting to see people like, okay, I'm done. Now we have these phased openings. Again, like I had said, when I went down to the mill during just phase one, I saw a ton of people out there. So now that the weather's warming up, now that there's this gradual reopening, people are going out more, and they're not doing the online items as much. In fact, I did have our annual meeting Thursday evening was the annual meeting for the Clarke County Historical Association. It was online, and we had a good turnout for that. We had 27 people show up for that. So that's not bad. That's not bad at all. But that's also like a once a year kind of thing. That was a special things. But a lot of our other online content, we're still putting them out there. Even though the numbers are starting to go down, we're still putting them out there. It's still expected. But what do you do when there's all these restrictions in place as well? So we're in this kind of weird middle.
Vortex.
Yes, exactly. So on one hand, the online numbers are going down, but we can't stop that. On the other hand, people are getting out more, but they can't gather and congregate in big groups. So we're in this weird middle spot right now, and we're trying to find some creative ways to address that.
So where can people find you on YouTube? Where can they go to see these videos? And the Archivist blog, I'm assuming, is on your website. What's the best place for people to start figuring out how they want to interact with you?
So the absolute best place to go is our website, clarkehistory.org. And when you go to that website, up in the top right-hand corner, you're going to see an image that with a man with some really big muscles from 1910. You click on that image and it talks about all of our online content. It has everything that you need there. It has our Facebook page. It has our YouTube page. It has our Archivist blog. All the links are there in one page. It's basically clarkehistory.org/online-activities. And so that's definitely the place to go to.
And then if somebody wants to make a donation, if they want to get a legacy stone, they want to do something to help support the museum and the Historical Association financially, they can do that from your website as well, right?
That's correct. Also go to clarkehistory.org, and in the top right corner, you'll see the Donate Now button. And any little bit helps. $5, $10, any amount helps. It all goes towards helping us to maintain all of these programs that we're doing and to preserve the archives and the historical artifacts. Everything helps.
And before we wrap up, I've only got about a minute left. Live trivia, where can people get involved and participate in live trivia?
Live trivia, check our Facebook page. Who knows by next month if it's going to be online or in person? We don't know. It's very hard to plan over the next month, which is it's difficult for an organization that plans their events a year in advance and not knowing how to do things a month in advance. So I would definitely say check our Facebook page for that. Clarke, it's facebook.com/ClarkeHistory. And Clarke is spelled with an E, and all of the events are out there, all of our posts, all that information is there on our Facebook page.
Awesome. Well, Nathan, thank you for taking some time out of your Saturday morning to have a conversation with me today. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
We are going to wrap up today's episode. Again, we have pre-recorded it on a Saturday morning. We have been chatting with Nathan Stalvey. He is the director of the Clarke County Historical Association. Again, everything that we talked about today can be found at clarkehistory.org. Tomorrow is Tourism Tuesday, and I am going to be chatting with Helen and Nathan from the Shenandoah Valley Travel Association. I can't wait to hear their perspective on shutdowns, phase 1s and phase 2s tomorrow. So meet me back here a few minutes after noon, and I will have that show ready to go for you.